My name is Ethan Hale. I'm 45 years old, and 6 weeks ago, I thought I had the kind of life other people might envy. I had a wife I cherished, Marissa, 41, and a stepdaughter, Tessa, 18, who I had loved and raised since she was 10. I ran my own civil engineering firm in Seattle, and we lived in a sleek, modern home with sweeping views of Lake Washington. We had friends, security, laughter, and I believed love. Now it's 2:14 in the morning, and I'm sitting in front of my laptop, trying to put into words how completely my life has been torn apart. The woman I spent the last decade loving had been having an affair for 5 years. And the girl I thought of as my own daughter, my little girl, had helped her hide it from me. It began with something small. One ordinary Tuesday afternoon, Marissa was away again on one of her client trips to Portland. Tessa was at her part-time job. I was working from home, reviewing blueprints for a high-rise project. My office printer ran out of ink, so I wandered over to Marissa's desk to find a spare cartridge. That's when I saw it, a small wooden box shoved behind a pile of old receipts. I'd never seen it before. Curious, I opened it. Inside was a bundle of hotel keycards, restaurant receipts from cities Marissa had never mentioned visiting, a movie ticket stub from San Francisco, and a cheap souvenir keychain from Vancouver, a place she had always claimed she hated. I told myself I was probably reading too much into it. I put the box back exactly as I found it and returned to work. But something had shifted in me that day. I started noticing all the little things I'd brushed aside for years. Her phone always flipped face down, the way she'd step outside to take certain calls, the vague explanations about late-night networking dinners. Then I crossed a line. While she was in the shower one night, I unlocked her phone. I only had a minute before she came out, but it was enough to see a string of messages from someone saved as D. They were filled with things like, "Can't wait to feel you again," and counting down the days. I didn't confront her immediately. I needed every detail before I went to war. I installed monitoring software on our home computer, something she still used for personal emails. 2 weeks later, she was in Chicago. I checked the data. My stomach dropped. There were years of emails between Marissa and a man named Derek Lawson. They started out light and casual, but soon became intimate. Private jokes, flirtation, talk of weekend getaways. Credit card statements confirmed it all. Hotels, dinners, plane tickets. 3 separate trips to Vancouver in the past year alone. 5 years. Half of our marriage. A complete lie. But the deepest cut came when I saw the messages between Marissa and Tessa. The girl I had taught to ride a bike, driven to school every morning, helped with college applications. She had been covering for her mother for 2 years. She made excuses for her, lied to my face, even pretended Marissa had called when she hadn't. When Marissa came back from Chicago, I acted as though nothing was wrong. For 3 days I barely ate, barely slept, just waited for the right moment. One evening, I sat her down in the living room, the same spot where we'd exchanged anniversary gifts last year, and said flatly, "I know about Derek." Her face drained of all color. She muttered something about a misunderstanding at work, but I laid out every piece of evidence. When I asked how long, she admitted it had been going on for 5 years. She claimed it wasn't always physical. When I asked about Tessa, she confessed that her daughter had known for 2 years. That was it for me. I packed Marissa's suitcase, set it by the door, and told her to leave. She cried, pleaded, promised she'd end it, but I had already ended us. The next night, I called Tessa into the kitchen. She broke down instantly, telling me she was terrified I'd leave if I knew the truth, that I was the only father she'd ever had. But all I could see in her was betrayal. I told her to pack her things. She clung to me, sobbing, calling me dad over and over. I almost gave in. Almost. But I made her go. A week later, I got a call from Marissa's lawyer about dividing assets and custody arrangements. They're threatening to sue if I don't take them back. I drained every account before they left. I'm not giving them another chance to hurt me. Tessa isn't even my biological daughter, yet I had spent years treating her like my own. When I discovered the depth of their betrayal, I lost control. In a fury, I transferred every cent from our joint accounts, $12,000, into a new one under my name. Then I told them both to leave. It didn't take long for Marissa's family to start hurling insults at me. They called me cold, heartless, and a monster for kicking out an 18-year-old girl and taking the money. My own sister said I was being unnecessarily cruel. But I kept thinking, how exactly does one forgive the two people they trusted most, only to learn that those people had been lying for years? It's been a month since that day. Tessa has been sending me long, emotional emails asking to come back, begging me to reconsider. I haven't replied to a single one. I'm not sure if I ever will. I'm starting to think that maybe the life I thought I had was never real in the first place. 2 weeks after throwing them out, the next storm hit. A sheriff's deputy arrived at my office with an envelope. Marissa was suing me, not only for half of our assets but also for spousal support and child support for Tessa. Child support? For an 18-year-old? Who wasn't even mine. At first, I laughed when I read it, but the sound felt empty. I knew enough about family court to understand this could get ugly fast. In Washington, the law sometimes treats stepchildren as dependents if you've acted as their parent. Marissa's lawyer planned to argue that I'd been in loco parentis for nearly a decade, which could mean I'd be forced to keep supporting Tessa financially. That's when I hired Karen Whitfield, a sharp, no-nonsense attorney in her 50s with a reputation for tearing cases like this apart. I laid everything out for her. The full timeline of the affair, Tessa's role in covering it up, every piece of evidence I had. Karen listened, leaned back in her chair, tapped her pen, and said, "They picked the wrong man to mess with." For the next 3 weeks, we built an airtight defense. We gathered emails proving the affair had been going on for years. We collected screenshots of conversations between Marissa and Tessa, showing exactly how they had coordinated their lies. We pulled financial records that proved I'd never adopted Tessa, and had no legal obligation to support her past the age of 18. Karen even found a case almost identical to mine where the man had won. When the court date arrived, the small, fluorescent-lit courtroom smelled faintly of stale coffee. Marissa sat at the petitioner's table looking polished but tense. Tessa was next to her, head down, wearing a pale dress. Their lawyer went first, weaving a tear-soaked narrative about a heartless father figure abandoning a child, leaving a devoted wife destitute after she had given him the best years of her life. Then it was our turn. Karen stood, voice steady, and dismantled their story piece by piece. She read aloud snippets from Marissa's emails to Derek. "Counting down the days until I'm in your arms again. Ethan thinks I'm in Chicago. Haha." She pulled up messages between Marissa and Tessa on a large screen for the judge to see. Marissa, "Tell him I called after dinner." Tessa, "Okay, I'll say you're tired from the conference." By the time Karen finished, the air was thick with tension. The judge turned to Marissa, expression like granite. "Mrs. Hale," he said, "you're asking this court to order financial support from a man you deceived for 5 years, for a child who is now an adult, knowing she actively participated in concealing your misconduct? Request denied. Case dismissed." The sound of the gavel felt like music. Outside, Marissa tried to speak to me. "Ethan, please. We don't have to end like this." I didn't even look at her. I just kept walking. That was 6 months ago. I sold the house and bought a smaller condo downtown. I buried myself in my work. I started hiking again, something I'd given up because Marissa didn't like dirt. I even booked a solo trip to Iceland, a dream I'd kept on hold for far too long. I haven't spoken to Marissa since the court case. Tessa sent one last apology, but I never opened it. Maybe forgiveness will come one day, but trust? Never again. Life is quieter now. Smaller maybe, but it's mine. Every piece of it. And if I've learned anything through this, it's that losing people who never truly valued you isn't really losing at all. It's freedom.